Albion, the first known name of these magical islands we call Britain. The term was used by the Greeks from the 4th century BC, and even earlier by the Celts and the Gauls. Albion referred to what we would say today is mainland Britain, i.e. Scotland, Wales, England, not including Ireland. But for the purposes of this film, Albion will refer to mainland Britain, Ireland, and part of France, and the fantastic standing stones of Carnac in the appropriately named Brittany. Albion has been translated as white land from the Latin albus, meaning white, and the Romans connected this to the White Cliffs of Dover, which look out to France across the English Channel. But others have a different opinion. Some Celtic linguists say that Albion refers to the world above, the visible world, as opposed to the underworld, the world below. But whatever the background, Albion to me is the heart of the world. The point on the global grid of force lines, energy lines, ley lines, meridian lines, dragon lines, where they cross in greatest abundance to form the center of the pattern, what I call the heart of the world! This is the theme I'll explore as we ask, why has there been such a global focus on these lands throughout history, lands that you can hardly see on a globe? Why did these islands spawn a global empire, the British Empire, on which it was said that the sun never set, so massive was its scale and breadth that it spanned every time zone on which the sun shines? Some of these British seas colonies were originally referred to as the New Albion. Why, through thousands of years of history, has the global secret society network of deceit and manipulation that I call the global cult been so associated with and located in England and the British Isles? Another question. Why are there more standing stone circles and ancient earthworks per square mile in the British Isles than anywhere else in the world? The answer to all those questions is the same. This is the center, the heart of the global energy pattern. This is the heart of the world. Control the heart center and you control the world. To explain what I mean by that, we must go deep into the nature of reality, deep enough to see that this Earth, as we perceive it, is only a narrow band of frequency that our body senses can decode and see. Mainstream science claims that the electromagnetic spectrum is only 0.005% of what exists in the universe as energy in all its forms. Some go as high as 0.5%, but either way, it is infinitesimal. And visible light, the only range of frequency we can see, is a fraction of the 0.005%. Humans are virtually blind to infinite existence. This means that the almost totality of what exists in the space we're observing, we can't see. The sight senses only decode, see, what is within visible light, and everything else it perceives to be empty. But space is not empty, anything but. In the same space that I'm standing in now lies all infinity, all possibility, all potential. And we are only perceiving, seeing a tiny band of that which we call the human world. To keep it simple, I'm going to focus on three realms or bands of frequency, realities. First, there's what I will call the 3D realm, which is everything that our body decoding systems, the five senses, can see, touch, taste, smell, and hear. 3D reality is actually a virtual reality simulation, as I've been saying since just after the turn of the millennium, and detailed at length in my books. Now ever more mainstream scientists are concluding the same, for the simulation answers all the great mysteries about our reality that would otherwise be unexplainable. See my iconic series, The Nature of Reality. The body is the means through which we, consciousness, interact with the simulation, a simulated reality construct created by a malevolent, non-human force to enslave us by enslaving our perception of reality and our self-identity. Next, there is the fourth dimension, also known as the astral, the dimension in which mind exists as a field of consciousness. People talk about astral traveling in their sleep, for example, which is possible because the astral or fourth dimension is the realm of mind, and so astral traveling is traveling with the mind. The fourth dimension is the base from which our 3D simulated world is projected as an illusion to entrap us. All that happens in the apparently 3D world is really being orchestrated in 4D reality, or, more to the point, in the lower frequency bands of the fourth dimension known as the lower astral or lower fourth dimension, which is the realm of demonic entities, including those that take a reptilian form, and demonic consciousness that have all been described and symbolized by religions and shamanistic cultures since ancient times.
You ungrateful creatures think yourselves lucky that I'm giving you audience tomorrow instead of 20 years from now. Oh, the great Oz has spoken. Oh, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. The great Oz has spoken.
Who are you?
Oh, I am the great and powerful Wizard of Oz.
Then there is the fifth dimension and beyond, the realm of expanded awareness not polluted by the chaos and illusion of 3D and the lower astral. This is the connection that the malevolent force is desperate to block. It knows that once what we call incarnate consciousness taps into this level of 5D awareness, all perception changes and the truth is revealed. This is what is known as awakening, and the malevolence must keep us asleep to prevent that and have its will prevail. When we talk about other dimensions, many people perceive them to be way out there. And of course, some are way out there, where the levels of expanded awareness are vibrating to a frequency that's way beyond this world of 3D. But other dimensions, like the fourth dimension, especially the lower levels of it, are not way out there. They are right here. Imagine two radio stations very, very close on the dial, so much so that one is interfering with the other. One dominates, yes, this world, but another can also be perceived. Well, that is the relationship, the interaction, interference between the lower levels of the fourth dimensional astral realm and this one. The astral realm is interfering, interacting with this world big time. Non-human reptilian and other entities, spacecraft and phenomena that can't be explained by 3D physics, are entering our visual frequency band from the fourth and especially the lower fourth dimension. They can't be seen in their fourth dimensional state, but when they cross the frequency divide into our reality, they appear to our 3D visible light. This is why people describe entities and spacecraft appearing out of nowhere and disappearing into nowhere. They have done no such thing. They have entered and left the frequency band of visible light, and so to any human observer, they appear and disappear, but only to the observer, not in reality. As a rule, if you can't see something, it's in the fourth dimension or lower fourth dimension. You can see your brain, the 3D processor of information and consciousness, but you can't see the energetic field that is your mind unless you can see into the fourth dimension or through technology such as Kirlian photography. Your mind is in the fourth dimension and your brain decodes its perceptions into 3D reality. In the end, it's all coming from the fourth or astral realm. This brings me to ley lines, meridian lines, or in Eastern philosophy, dragon lines, the lines of energetic force which interpenetrate and cross planet Earth. They connect standing stone circles, standing stones, ancient earthworks, churches, sacred hills, all located at the power centers where the lines cross. Now, Albion is awash with them, the heart of the world. And it's, of course, well known about Stonehenge, perhaps the most famous stone circle in the world. And here we have Avebury, said to be the biggest stone circle in the world, in the west of England, about half an hour's drive from Stonehenge. And the ancients knew about these power centers and their significance in the form of people like the Druids, the priestly class of the Celts, and secret societies like the Knights Templar that pass on this knowledge through initiations, through the generations, while keeping it overwhelmingly from the general population. And these lines, these ley lines, they are the equivalent of meridian lines in the human body, tapped into by the healing art of acupuncture that goes back thousands of years. And there's a reason why the lines of force in the body and the lines of force in the earth are essentially the same. And that reason is the world is a hologram. Our simulated 3D reality is holographic. Physicality is illusory, in other words. Holograms can look very solid, but they're not. The apparent solidity is an illusion created by the body's five-sense decoding system. Once again, see my Nature of Reality series on Iconic. An amazing characteristic of holograms is that every part of a hologram is a smaller version of the whole. Alternative methods of healing, such as acupuncture and reflexology, can find the whole body represented in the hands, ears, feet, and so on, because the body is a hologram. From this comes the principle of as above, so below. Look at the human energy field in the fourth dimension and compare it with the Earth's field or magnetosphere, and you'll see what I mean. This is the holographic principle. And it's the same with fractal patterns and other forms of sacred geometry that can be found throughout this holographic simulation that we know as human reality. This is Glastonbury Tor, the famous spiritual centre in the west of England, and an example, strange as it may seem, of the holographic principle. The process by which the human body is reflected in the earth and the earth is reflected in the body, not least through something called chakras or wheels of light in the ancient Sanskrit language of the Indian subcontinent. Chakras are vortices that interpenetrate the various energy levels of the human body and connect us to other dimensions of reality, be that the fourth dimension or the fifth and beyond. The key chakra is the heart vortex, which when properly opened connects us with the highest levels of awareness way beyond the 3D and 4D realms. The goal of the global cult and their so-called gods of the lower fourth dimension is to close the heart chakra through emotional manipulation and therefore hold us vibrationally and so perceptually in these lower realms. They want closed hearts, heartache, and hearts of stone, all of which can be secured by the emotion of fear. The Earth, too, is said to have 7 major chakras. The heart chakra of planet Earth is said to be Glastonbury Tor behind me, and others include Mount Shasta in California, Lake Titicaca in Peru, Uluru or Ayers Rock in Australia, the Great Pyramid in Egypt, and Mount Kailash in Tibet. And the synchronicity of my life has taken me to all of them except Mount Kailash. And the belief in Glastonbury Tor as the heart chakra of the planet is kind of more confirmation, really, of my contention that the entire British Isles is the heart center of planet Earth, where the lines cross and intersect, which impact on the entire global system. With all that background, we can see the real meaning of these ley lines and PowerPoints. They are part of a vast electrical, electromagnetic system. The whole universe is a electrical, electromagnetic system. Why? Because it's a simulation. What are virtual reality computer games? Electrical systems. So people come to circles like this and they see stones, okay? But that's what they see with their 5-sense sight. But if they could see beyond visible light and into fourth dimensional reality, they would see lines of force, electromagnetic, electrical lines of force coming into these places and creating a vortex as they meet. They would see the energy spinning around the circle, activating and interacting with the stones. And so when people say, I feel the energy, okay, you can't see it, but you feel it, because on the level of feeling, we are in fourth dimensional reality. So this is why the ancients put their stone circles and standing stones and other markers upon these points. Why the pyramids were placed where they are. It was to tap into and harness this electrical system of electromagnetic energy consciousness information. And they could also here communicate with their fourth dimensional gods, on which point, when these lines cross and create this vortex, it thins out, the vortex thins out the difference between the third dimension and the fourth dimension. And so at these places, it's very much thinner, and the gods can not only communicate, but often they can manifest in these places because they're much closer to this reality when the vortexes are thrown up.
Ley lines and the meridian lines of the body carry information in the form of energetic frequency, just like a radio or television frequency carries information to be decoded by the radio or TV. When the energy, information, is flowing as it should, the body is healthy, the planet is healthy, and to use a computer analogy, everything works as it should. When a virus infects a computer, the first thing you notice is, my computer is so slow today. Why? Because the information is not circulating to optimum effect. It's the same with the body and the planet. When the energy flow is disrupted and its frequency manipulated, everything starts to malfunction, psychologically as well as in other ways.
Another point and another question. What is it about stone and stones? Well, to answer that question, we come to a phrase that people use all the time: set in stone, which means something is immovable. And these ley lines and vortices, which the ley lines crossing create, are a fourth dimensional phenomena. And the non-human gods manipulating human society are a fourth dimensional phenomena. And to influence the 3D world from the 4D world, they need a dense, slow vibration, what we call matter, dense matter in this case, to anchor that fourth dimensional energy in 3D reality. And to do that, they use stones. And they use crystalline stones overwhelmingly. And note that crystals are used in communication technology. And it means that the energetically sensitive can tune in through the crystal lines, rocks, to this information in the ley lines and communicate and access information from what the ancients perceived as the gods.
Why is the British monarch crowned while sitting on an ancient stone in the coronation chair at Westminster Abbey? What on earth could be the reason for that? The answer takes us to Scotland.
I'm at Scoon Palace, just down the road from Perth in Scotland. And this is a replica of the Stone of Destiny, on which the best part of 40 Scottish monarchs were crowned sitting on this stone. What happened is that in 1296, Edward I of England, he was in a battle with the Scots, and this was very much brought into the modern awareness through the Braveheart movie with Mel Gibson, where he played William Wallace. And in one of these battles, the army of Edward I took the Stone of Destiny, and took it back with them to Westminster Abbey, where for the next 700 years, right to present day, The monarchs of first England, then Great Britain, then the United Kingdom have been crowned in Westminster Abbey, sitting on the so-called coronation chair with the stone under their bum. And then in 1996, the British government decided they were going to allow it to come back to Scotland. It's now in the castle at Edinburgh, and it will be used for the next coronation.
The relationship with stones and coronations, I suggest, is that stone anchors fourth-dimensional entities in 3D reality, which therefore become, in the unseen, part of the coronation ritual. A coronation is really a fourth-dimensional ritual played out in apparently 3D reality. Is the human queen or king being crowned as the monarch, or the ritual-obsessed, title-obsessed, fourth-dimensional reptilian gods for which the human level is merely a vehicle for possession? Possession is another way that fourth-dimensional entities can be anchored in 3D reality via the body. Talking of which, why do satanic rituals invariably involve a stone altar? Why have stone altars been used through the ages by religions with their origins in the pagan ancient world, and in rituals of the dark occult, as with the sacrifice of young virgins, i.e. children, to the gods? The altar stone allows fourth-dimensional entities to be anchored in 3D reality and allows them to take part in and direct the ritual. While the human Satanists drink the blood and flesh, fourth-dimensional entities feed off the low vibrational energy generated by the terror of the sacrifice. The world we think we see is so different when you encompass what we don't see.
We're now closing in on why Albion, heart of the world, is so important, and why the nature of the energy passing through the grid is crucial to what happens here in what we call everyday life. The grid is a fourth-dimensional field which we can't see, but we can feel. And I look around here and I see buildings, I see lampposts, I see people, and there appears to be, to my five senses, empty space between them. But there is no empty space. What we think of as emptiness is actually fourth-dimensional energy, what I call the field.
Control the frequency and informational nature of the ley line system, and you impact on the frequency and informational nature of the field that we are constantly interacting with through our own energetic fields. The nature of the field, therefore, dictates the nature of us, holographically and psychologically, unless we are connected to expanded levels of consciousness that protect us through higher frequencies from the negative influence of the field.
My conclusion that the British Isles is the heart center of the world began a long time ago in 1990 when I was writing this book, Truth Vibrations, the first book that I wrote after my head blew off, if you like, the top of it anyway. And I came across for the first time something called channeling. And I was invited along to a channeling with a lady in the west of England. And if people doubt shape-shifting, they should have been with me that day, because her face completely changed when she went into channel mode, and her voice completely changed. And a lot of information came out, which I include in the Truth Vibrations. But this is relevant to this film. This is what was said through this lady. As in your human body, there are energy lines around your planet, through your planet, which correspond, I suppose, very much to the acupuncture lines and meridians in your body. Where two lines cross, you create a vortex, a tiny vortex if it's two. The more lines that intersect, the bigger the vortex. Therefore, when you have a chakra, you have a large vortex of intersecting energy. It is the same with your planet. Where most lines cross, there is the biggest vortex. Now, you could say that the plexus in and around the islands you call the British Isles is the hub of the wheel of plexuses and energies which surround your planet. It has acted in other times like a fail-safe device. In order to activate these chakra points upon your planet, the energies must all pass through the central point. They must pass through the heart of the pattern.
The most famous city in Albion is, of course, London, another major network of energy lines within the heart of the world. Its official history begins with the Romans between 40 and 50 AD. They called it Londinium, and it stood on the site of today's financial district known as the City. But others have taken back the history of London more than 1,000 years before Roman occupation to the descendants of the Trojan Wars of ancient Greek myth between the Greeks and the people of Troy in what is now Turkey in about the 13th or 12th centuries BC. There is a legend that a Trojan called Brutus led a fleet of ships after the fall of Troy that landed in what is now Totnes in Devon and founded the new Troy in the location that became London. I have been to what is claimed to be Troy in the west of Turkey, but I've also seen evidence that the Trojan Wars, or at least one of them, actually took place in England in what is now Cambridgeshire, and that would add another dimension to the story about Trojans founding the new Troy some 60 miles to the south as what later became the Roman Londinium. Whatever the truth of that story, and it absolutely should not be dismissed out of hand, London has a long and extraordinary history and has attracted secret groups and societies for thousands of years to its energy grid in the heart of the world, including the Knights Templar, the inner core of the Freemasons, and the Druids, the priestly class of the Celts, who have all known how to tap and harness that power for their own ends. As London developed, they placed their major religious, government and royal buildings and palaces on power points within the grid and used that power to so impact on human consciousness via the field that an empire was built from here on which that sun never set.
Piccadilly Circus in London, one of the most famous areas of a vast city. And it's famous, of course, for its red buses and its black cabs and its famous buildings and its extraordinary history. And this is one of the books I've read over the years, London City of Revelation by C.E. Street. And there's another one I read called Earth Stars, which is excellent, which charts the energy system of London. And you've got the heart system, the global heart system, which is the British Isles. And you've got the chakra points upon that heart system. And then there are other areas where they are massive centers for energetic power within this heart system. And one of them is, of course, London. And that's why London has had such an extraordinary impact upon the world. The British Empire was run out of London, and so much that goes on in the world today is still hatched in London, not the British government, but in the secret society network centres that are in London. And what we're going to do is have just a brief little tour around some of the power points in London. This is the point where Temple Bar used to stand. They took it down and rebuilt it elsewhere because the traffic couldn't get through it in modern times, and in Victorian times actually. And what is the chance that they would mark it with a flying reptile holding a shield to mark the entrance from the Temple into the City of London financial district? Because of what I've written over the years, of course, about the reptilian connection to this global cult and knowledge of sacred geometry, which they want to keep from the people. And that shield is actually, as we'll see elsewhere, a red cross on a white background. That's the shield it's holding. And that is the symbol of the City of London financial district. You see it everywhere. It's a reptile, a flying reptile, or two often, holding the shield of the Knights Templar. And because the Knights Templar, this whole land, all this land in ancient times was owned by the Knights Templar. And secretly, undercover now, it still is, because they control the legal profession and the financial system. The legal profession, barristers and judges that are based in this area, they're broken up into temples, like there's an inner temple and a middle temple and so on. And here's one of them, called the outer temple. And these are secret societies. They are groups of very orchestrated, organized, representative organizations of barristers and judges. And through these connections, you know, what goes on across the road in the royal courts of justice, if the authorities, the cult, wants a case to go a certain way, wants someone to lose or someone to win, well, this network can arrange for that to happen, not least by putting the right judge in the right case to ensure that you're going to get the result you want. So this is the Middle Temple Hall, very old as you can see. And there's again, the red cross and the white background, Knights Templar symbol. There's the kind of rosy cross feel of the Rosicrucian order and that whole symbolism. Hoarding of the knowledge has gone on for so long. They know about the energy system of England. They know in Britain, British Isles. They know that if you manipulate the energy going through the system, you manipulate human consciousness because we're interacting with it. This is the Temple Church of the Knights Templar, and this is the original part. The Templars built their churches with round style, and that here goes back to the 12th century. The Knights Templar can't be ignored if you're following the way the knowledge that's kept from the people has gone through history. The official story of the Knights Templar is that they were created by a French knight in 1118, and their reason for creating them was to protect pilgrims going to the Holy Land. This is all during the Crusades. But what they did was set their headquarters on Temple Mount, on the site, the alleged site, of Solomon's Temple. And they found something. They started excavating under Temple Mount, where the big golden dome mosque is now. And they found something. This is the story of the Templars. And one of the Knights came back into Europe, and suddenly the Knights Templars started exploding in terms of control, influence, wealth. And in so many ways, the modern banking system was created by the Templars. And so they became incredibly wealthy. They built castles all over Europe. They built churches galore. And yet, the members of the Templars were said to take a vow of poverty. And yet they ran this vast financial empire. That, in the end, was their undoing, because a king called King Philip of France purged the Templars in France in 1307. And eventually, a few years later, the Grand Master, a guy called Jacques de Molay, was burned at the stake in France. But a lot of the Templars got away, and they went round the west coast of Ireland and into Scotland. This is where they connected with the Rosslyn Chapel Sinclair family that was the St. Clair family from France. It's all coming out of France. And they re-emerged in one way, the Templars, as the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. And if you look at the symbolism of Freemasonry, you've got the twin pillars. In all their buildings, you've got the twin pillars. Well, those twin pillars were said to be outside the Temple of Solomon on Temple Mount. That's where it comes from. And so the Freemasons and the Templars are absolutely intertwined. And this is a sacred center for the Templars and for the global cult. This is the United Grand Lodge of Freemasonry. This site has had a Freemasonic lodge on it since the 1700s. This building was built, this quite staggering building with the twin pillars of Freemasonry, was built between 1927 and 1933. But from this site, this so-called Mother Lodge of Freemasonry, Freemasonry was launched into America. And so the knowledge that was carried out of the Middle East through Britain by the Knights Templar and the Secret Society network was then transferred to the New World. This is St. Paul's Cathedral at the top of Ludgate Hill in London. And it's a wonderful example of how this knowledge has passed through the centuries, hidden from the population, and is still used today. Because the site we're looking at was in Roman times, when London was Londinium. It was the site of goddess Diana worship, the big goddess of those ancient times. And it was here that the royal family married Princess Diana to Prince Charles. And if you look at the ritualistic nature of the royal family, that was no accident, and nor was where she died in the tunnel in Paris. And history tells you one story, but if you look at it from the secret society angle, you see another story. So in 1666, this area of London, massive area of London, was destroyed in what they call the Great Fire of London. And it's supposed to have started in a baker's shop and then went everywhere and cleared the place. In fact, if you look deeper into it, that was started on purpose to clear this entire land, because immediately after that happened, about 13,000 houses were destroyed. They started building in relation to the sacred geometry alignments of London, these major buildings that we've been looking at, and one of them is St. Paul's Cathedral. And it was designed by a guy called Sir Christopher Wren, who was a high initiate of this secret society network. And it's built and aligned with other buildings, including an alignment with the Temple Church that we've seen already, on sacred geometry lines. So we'll conclude our little tour of the London power centres here in the City of London at the Bank of England. And if you pull all the strands together, what you've got is a stream of knowledge coming out of the ancient world, out of Babylon and going through Rome and the Roman Empire, coming to settle to such a large extent in the British Isles. So this secret network has known about this knowledge all along. It's known the nature of reality and how we interact with it. It's known the true nature of the British Isles and why they are so important. They've used this knowledge to put buildings and other things like ritual centers upon these key energy points to push the frequency down. But what's happening now is we are uncovering for the general population what they've known all along. And when the population know what they know, the game changes.
The Albion heart centre of the global grid is a massive network of ley lines and vortices, the biggest of which spans out across the UK and Ireland and across the English Channel to the astonishing standing stone phenomenon that is Karnak in Brittany.
So this is Karnak, a place I've wanted to come for such a long time. And I'll tell you this, if you ever make it here, you will not be disappointed. It is amazing. It's the biggest concentration of stones of its type anywhere in the world. In an area of 2.5 miles going off into the distance are the best part of 3,000 standing stones put here between, it is said, estimated, between 4,500, 5,000 BC and 3,300 BC by, I've heard it said in the official story, a peasant community. No, not a peasant community. A community, a knowledge of great advancement. That's how you manage to create this architectural, archaeological phenomena called Karnak.
The global cult satanic networks have sought to control the heart center and thus the frequency and nature of the energy information circulating through and around planet Earth and dictating the frequency of the field with which humans are constantly interacting. In part 2 of Albion, Heart of the World, we look at the major lines of force that form the global heart center and how we can awaken Albion and thus awaken the world.